how are you today? So I'm back with Deli, who's a four-star vent horse. If you haven't seen four-star venting, check it out. It's pretty cool. Look it up on YouTube. It's pretty amazing what this horse is capable of. You'll see he's dressed a little bit differently today. He's in some Western attire, and I just want to do some things with him because he gets a little spooky, but what I consider him is kind of like a sleeping dragon. So if you ever had a horse that seems really, really relaxed and all of a sudden something just really sets them off, so that's kind of how he is. So sometimes when you start working with a horse that has an issue like this, you want to be able to find out where the trigger is and what's causing that, so you can help them fix that. If you don't know the reason behind it, you can't fix the issue that they have. So that's something that I'm working with him on and helping him to build confidence. So we typically, once we find out why it's happening, then we don't have to bring him to that level again, and we can just say, hey, let's work together to never have you have to get to that point again where you're really in a flight status, and to build that confidence for him. So I think he's been in a Western saddle a couple times. He was out in Montana. Like I said, the only reason I have a Western saddle on him is so he can feel the rear cinch on it a little bit, see how he reacts to that. I can put some different things on him, see how he reacts to those things that are going to be on him. Just as when it comes to direct pressure, indirect pressure, and steady pressure. So steady pressure is pressure that's always going to be on the horse saddle, constantly pressuring him. Us as riders, steady pressure. Bridle, boots, anything like that, steady pressure. Indirect pressure is pressure that's moving next to him. So there's no reason for him to be worried right now about anything because this is indirect pressure. He doesn't feel pressure on him at all. So he doesn't have to be worried as long as he is confident in himself. So when you talk about flagging a horse and being desensitized, I just did another video on emotion versus emotionless, right? So sometimes you hear the word like, well, I've got a bomb-proof horse, or I've got a horse that's been so desensitized that nothing bothers him. That's good and that's bad, right? So like it's like you don't want to have someone have a lobotomy and they don't care about anything in life and they just go along and agree to every single thing in the world. That's no way to live. That's no way to have a relationship with someone, and that's no way to feel like your partner should be with you. If you're in a relationship with somebody, you want them to have their own feelings, their own thoughts, and their own opinions about things, and you work together as a team. Now, in this case, like I'm his team leader, so I want him always to be looking at me like a pilot co-pilot situation. But I don't want him to not have a brain and not have the ability to make a decision, especially as an event horse, because I'm not an eventer, but I've got friends that are eventers, and they've told me on more than one occasion that their horse has decided to take the reins at one point over a jump, and it probably saved their life. So we have to listen to our partners as well once we get that good enough partnership to do that. So once again, indirect pressure. So now when I go to direct pressure, if I want, and this goes back to the whole desensitizing thing. So if I want him to move off my flag, so I want him to be aware of the pressure and where the flag is. So if I want him to move off that right shoulder, I want that flag to not bother him when he does that. So that was a good example. So the camera right now just auto rotated on him, and he got a little nervous about that. So you can see now his demeanor's up a little bit more. So we have a horse that was so chill, and then all of a sudden something little kind of caught him. So I'm just going to ask him to move off of the left right now. So right now he's stuck because he's focused on what's over there, which is the camera that you guys are watching through. So I'm going to ask him just to trust me and just walk off. Now for a horse like this, is like, you know, it's not, it would not be good for me to really ramp it up and really freak him out, because I want to be able to see where the holes are, see where the issues are, but also build the trust with him where he is wanting to be focused on me and not wanting to be focused on the outside world. So if I scare him to death, I'm not going to be building a very good relationship to start. So he's looking over there, I'll say, hey, I'm over here, focus on me. So a lot of these exercises are going to be more exercises on focusing on me exercises. Once I get that, then I can start to really dive into biomechanics of him and how I want his body to move. So I have to get the brain first, and you see that just took a nice big breath. And all that little tension that just happened right now, and I want to catch it there, but that tension that just happened right now is because when he went by, the camera rotated to follow him, and he went, oh my God, what was that? And his ears are so good he could hear that happening. So once again, I'm going to go back and make sure that indirect pressure is not an issue for him. Clearly, steady pressure is not an issue, but I want to make sure that this is not a problem for him. And where you can get yourself into trouble is when you have a horse like this that's pretty darn good 90% of the time, but 10% of the time they have a moment. We need to get that to 100%, where, you know, he's still a horse, but we want to minimize that from being a really big moment to maybe a very, very, very small moment to then no moment at all, to that trust. So I'm going to ask him to move off my flag again. Now I might just pick up and go towards that hind end and move that hind end around with the pressure of my flag. Now I might just ask him to step across, step back and across on this side. And so my goal is to have him never hit the end of this line and be tight on it. So if I go like that, ask him to step back with the right, or back with the left and over, have him come around. So every time he looks away from me, so he just went by the camera again, so every time he looks away from me, so what I'm going to do is when he goes by that camera this time, I'm going to see if I can get his attention more on me. So you can see right there, he got a little bracing in the shoulder, but these are the things that I'm looking for in my horse's worry cup, if you will. So you think about your horse as a cup. He starts off empty in the day, and the more he gets worried, the more it builds, the more issues he might have. You see when he goes around by that camera, he kind of scooches a little bit more. So you'll see kind of like takes a step there, gets a little bracy. So I'm going to ask him to come back off of that. Now when I kiss, it's not to ask a horse to go. It's literally to get their attention on me, to get that ear on me. So if I go, I want to get that ear. You see right there is a good example. So when he goes to cross that way, when he's facing the camera, he gets a little bracy. And he's like, oh no. He's like, he gets worried, right? So when we talk about that worry cup, so I'm gonna let him take that in for a second. So he licked and chewed. I might walk in towards that rib cage, ask him to start to bend and use himself a little bit more. So I'll use my flag as kind of a post that he'll go around. And these exercises are gonna be good for that hind leg too, stretching. So I want him to really reach across with that hind leg. So see how it gets a little stuck in the shoulder there? So it's going to walk forward a little bit more. Good. So as we're going through this process, we always want to make sure that if the worry cup goes and goes and goes, we might not notice it. Like, so you're having a bad day, like, right? Everything's going kind of wrong for you. And this happens, the next thing happens, the next thing happens, the next thing happens. And say that you're in a relationship and you get home and your significant other says, you know, hey babe, did you happen to grab that bottle of wine? You go, are you kidding me? You know what type of day I've had? Grab that bottle of wine. You have no idea what type of day I've had. And your partner's like, no, you said you'd pick up the wine. I just was asking if you got the wine. What's going on? Is everything okay? You were the straw that broke the camel's back, right? The worry cup overflowed at that moment, and you got the brunt of that, right? It was nothing personal towards you. It just was, that's how life was. And so had you had one difficult thing happen to you, and then you sat back and said, okay, a little bit of frustration in my cup. So that's a frustration cup versus a worry cup, right? A little frustration in that cup. I'm going to pour it out. Get back to neutral. Next thing happens, pour it out, get back to neutral. Take some time to be mindful. So at the end of the day, you're not all built up. So we have horses that we, like with him, that might be fine, might not express to you in a big manner that they have an issue, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and slowly all of a sudden they just go, I can't handle it. So he took a nice big breath there. So I was going to play with him with these fenders here and just put them on him, but like, why would I want to do that until he can pass the camera and be pretty relaxed? Why would I want to add one more thing of pressure to him until he can go by the camera and have relaxation? Because if I miss the cues and remember that the cues aren't these big, huge things, it's the smallest little things. Like people bring me a horse that rears, and there's like 50 things that I'll look at that horse before it even started to rear. So we have to catch those things before they happen. So if I know that there's pressure on him already, then why would I want to add more pressure to him? Get him over faster? It's probably not going to work the best. And it's going to make him more fearful of me, more fearful of humans, and then more fearful of situations around him. So we want to make sure we are aware of that. him to move off of the shoulder, off of his left shoulder. I might ask him just to walk along. Go around this one more time. I might ask him to pick up the trot. So he walked by that, much better. Little tiny right there, you saw that. So I'm gonna ask him to walk by that again. So I'm looking for that relaxation in his head. See if his head pops up at all going around there. So see how it just popped up about 2 inches right there? That's something I'm gonna be looking at. So I'm gonna let him go around there again. I want to give him the opportunity to get through this. You can see, watch his front shoulders when he goes around there. Front shoulders change. So I want him to sort through this. I want him to start to trust in himself. So he's checking in with me. I'm going to go, nope, I am confident that you can get by there with no problem. Good, so it's getting better. But we want to address the issues when they're small before they become big. Now, if we have a horse that comes to me with a big issue, the first thing I'll do is work with that horse on, so look at the head licking and chewing as he's coming around here. So I'm just going to keep letting him sort through this as I talk to you. So if we have a horse that comes to me with a big problem, I'll have to raise that horse's energy to find out what's causing that problem, and then we go back down to the baby steps on it. So, and he's a horse that's like, obviously he's worried about everything on the outside of this round pen. And I want to keep him not worried about that, but focused on me. So what I might do right there is I might just change his thought process. Okay, see how that time he followed me and I never even got tight on my line? It's pretty simple. So now I'm going to ask him just to swing across this way and just walk back over that direction. So my goal is to him, so like someone might say, man, this horse looks really nice. He's just walking around. Tell me in the comments what you see. What do you see in him that's making him worried? I'd love to get your take on it. What you think is going on with him right now. And what I'm looking for with him. Good. Now we're getting some relaxation. Head starting to come down. Looking for that relaxation to come back. I want him to want to feel like he can walk along with his head relaxed and he doesn't have to lift it up higher than that. I'd like to see it about that point or even a little lower. I'd like to see his pole matching his withers when he's just cruising around here. So when he gets to the other side of his camera now, I'm going to just step this way. You see how I'm holding this line right now? My goal is to get him so he's focused on me. So I'm going to test. Always ask with more than you think it's going to take to get the job done. And then if it doesn't, you ramp up that energy until you get the result that you want, and then you go back to being very light. So you see, oh my God, what's over there? So I'm going to ask him to go out back out this way. Because right now, even at the walk, if he's not focused on me 100%, then there, took a breath right there, licking and chewing. Motion creates emotion, right? That's a Tony Robbins quote, right? We look at it in horses, motion creates emotion. What does that mean? That means that if he's gets running in a prey animal, if they get really running, that could mean that they're in an emotion of flight and fear, right? So we want our horses to, when they get in motion, they don't feel flight or fear. That they feel comfortable with us. So I'm going to ask them to change directions. And now I might ask them to pick up the trot. Trot. relaxation. Think back down to the walk. All I want to do is bring my energy down. And he goes down to the walk. And I want him to be focused on me. I always want him to be asking me questions, and I will never, ever get upset with a horse that is trying. Ever, ever, ever. If they're trying to figure out the right answer, we will give that in that time that it takes to figure that out. So in the next session, you'll see me working with the fenders on it, on him, and you know, just see how he starts to get that way and how he starts to feel with different things attached to him. Just not to desensitize him, but to have him start to be able to understand and conceptually know what to do. Whether it's a tarp tied to his tail, or if it's, you know, he goes by and he gets something stuck to him, or if he gets a line attached to him in the barn, he's walking through the barn, something happens. We know they're horses, they always get into stuff. They could be in a padded stall and still cut themselves somehow. So what can we do for him to help him regulate and go, I don't have to be worried about that? Because desensitizing is going, I don't want him to be sensitive to my flag. Well, then you got to go get this next thing. Go, I don't want him to be sensitive to that. And you go to this thing. I don't want him to be sensitive to this. And you do it so much that the horse actually has zero response and loses the ability to make a decision. We want him to make the right decision. Horses have the ability to self-regulate. It's important for us to teach them how to self-regulate. And if I ask him to back up, so I'll bring up my energy. So if I don't get there, good. So see, too much energy, he got nervous, right? So I'll ask him to come back towards me. And then I'll bring up my energy. Good. So he is learning how to make the right answer. He's learning the answer is yes to my questions, understanding what we've worked on before. If you guys enjoyed this, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and watch more of Deli's journey as he overcomes his fears, and notice all the little things with him that I'm working on to get him to relax. Because if we can get him to relax at this state, he'll relax at the higher levels. And even pushing a horse forward, yeah, they don't spook as much because they're going forward, and the inertia of going forward is big. We want him to be relaxed, going to fences, going to everything he goes to. Have him be a happy horse, which he's a happy horse. We just got that little bit of tweak. He's got a little bit of nervousness in there. So hope you guys enjoy this. Take care. Have a great day.